All right, and it's time to start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our seminar. This marks the continuation of an amazing partnership between Joe Elliott's Catalyst Collective, which provides mentoring to unlock next generation's connection to identity, purpose, and belonging, and my company, Ivy Scholars, which helps high school students build candidacy and apply to college. Joe, thank you again so much for inviting us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the seventh in a series of monthly seminars to prepare both mentorship communities to teach 12 to 18-year-olds about critical topics in higher education. And I have some critical topics to review with you. But before we get there, a brief review. My name is Sasha Chana. I'm our CEO at Ivy Scholars. I lead a company of 20 mentors working with a few hundred students per year. We've helped about 3,600 students since I founded the company 8 years ago after graduating from the Johns Hopkins University. Over 90% of those students were accepted to one of their reach schools, and 100% made it to one of their target schools. 10% of our revenue goes to our nonprofit, which works with low-income students from Texas, California, New York, and New Jersey, as well as refugees from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Ukraine. On a personal level, I love helping children find a path to awaken their intellectual vitality and leadership characteristics, then demonstrate those in college applications. At Ivy Scholars, it's our job to take everything I discussed in this presentation, combine it with expert mentorship and project management, and mentor high school students so they have amazing stories to tell on their college applications. Now, the topics du jour. College decisions are staring us in the face. The matriculation deadline is less than 2 weeks away, so we're going to talk about the May 1st deadline and what it means for you as college students or the parents of current college students. We'll also talk about waitlist strategies for students who are still waiting to be accepted to the university they really want to attend, as well as options for a gap year in case you'd like to give yourself one more year before joining your university community. We'll also talk about admissions via community college, as well as athletic recruitment. Finally, I want to discuss summer activities and then talk a bit about the scholarship program that Ivy Scholars has created in partnership with Joe Elliott's Catalyst Collective. I think it can help some really amazing young men and women, and I'm hoping you'll help us identify them. Now let's get started and talk about analyzing and finalizing college decisions. Simply put, the two most important variables in college decision-making are affordability and the program of study. By and large, students will attend universities where they can afford to pay tuition and they're allowed to study what they want. Everything after that is secondhand. For this is U.S. News and World Report, which has a ranking of all different universities. I wouldn't say it is objectively the truest and best metric, but it certainly is a great starting point. After that comes career outcomes and job opportunities for graduates, and you'll see a greater emphasis on this even in top tier and tier 2 schools that previously held themselves as more academic or ivory tower institutions and were less concerned with post-matriculation, post-graduation employment. Nowadays, you'll find that all top 50 universities have well-funded and rapid career services departments designed to make sure those universities' graduates get amazing jobs. Now, there have been a few changes in terms of location preferences, specifically over time. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, students have tended towards urban campuses and slightly towards suburban campuses, notably away from rural campuses. More students have also enrolled in mid-sized programs. There's fewer willing to enroll in very large or very small programs, especially in fully online programs. So guys, clear trend, one we all knew was coming. Post-COVID-19, people want to be there in person in a place they feel comfortable, in a site that's going to give them in-person learning opportunities. In terms of priorities, once students actually join campus, you'll see the diversity of both the student body and faculty and staff are preeminent. Students in general are more sensitive towards arts, culture, social and political issue, and intercultural services. There's a much smaller emphasis on things like religion or Greek life compared to 10, especially 20 or 30 years ago. Now, I mentioned that May 1st matriculation deadline, and I want to remind everyone by me. May 1st is your deadline to tell colleges if you want to attend their institution, and if you don't, they're going to assume you're going to seek your education elsewhere. Most colleges require a deposit, generally between $250 and $600. This can be waived for any students receiving financial aid. It's important, if you're planning on attending college this coming semester in fall 2024, you notify both the universities that you want to attend, as well as the universities you are not planning to attend. It's important to let them know where they stand with you so they can manage their student body. After you've finished with that, you've got a bigger challenge, planning out your curriculum. But what if You're not accepted to the university you want to go yet. What if you're still on a wait list? Let's talk about it. First thing to do if you're on a wait list is to confirm your spot. Each university will give you an application portal. That application portal will have a button to confirm your spot. Click it. Those spots generally leave on a first come, first served basis, and universities won't admit students off the wait list who haven't already confirmed their interest. Now, the second thing you've got to do to increase your chances of getting off the wait list is to send an LOCI, letter of continued interest. This is a letter that explains your interest in the university and why you feel you'd be a good fit if you're accepted. You can see the effectiveness of LOCIs at the chart on the right-hand side. If you look at the admit from the waitlist rate, that's the furthest right column, you'll see that Hopkins will accept about 6.8% of students, and Baylor will accept about 18% of students who write them an LOCI explaining why they feel they ought to be moved from the waitlist into the undergrad matriculant body. In the LOCI, it's your job to provide an update on major accomplishments, scholarships you've won, increases to your GPA, any research publications. It's also very useful to ask your counselor to do an advocacy call to the university. Notably, you can't do this yourself, nor can your parents do it for you. It's the job specifically of your high school's college counselor to contact your university on your behalf and advocate for you getting off the wait list. Now, in terms of what you can do, if you've got a major extracurricular accomplishment, your grades have increased, you've got new SAT or ACT test scores, you're changing majors or colleges, or if you found that your interests have changed, you've got a chance to write a great LOCI. My ideal here would be some sort of quantifiable victory, something that's got an apex in senior year in which you've got a big applicant pool and you might stand out tremendously. For example, lots of debate venues or science fairs will have quarterfinalist, semifinalist, finalist positions to let you know about the top 8, 4, and 2 students respectively. This gives you a nice way to give admissions officers an idea of how competitive you are. If you're a quarterfinalist, the top 8, in a competition with 500 people, that can help universities make a decision a lot easier than stating you're a quarterfinalist in general. My rule of thumb for test score increases is that your GPA ought to increase by at least 0.1, so from 3.8 to 3.9, or your SAT needs to increase by about 30 points, or your ACT needs to increase by at least 1 point. If it's less than that, like a fractional increase on the ACT or an SAT of 10 to 20 points, it's generally not worth reporting. When you draft your LOCI, keep in mind it's a formal letter, get straight to the point, give the relevant details. It's important not to try and make this another essay. You've already written those to universities, or to sound you're begging. Your goal in this letter is to inform admissions officers of the great candidacy you have and how you feel that would make you a great fit at their school. I also want to add, you'll get bonus points for explaining connections you have to the university in question, including contact with individuals, alumni, student groups, faculty, staff, anything that gives admission officers an idea of your landing pad. That once you join the university, there's people you know and things you already want to do that would help in you fitting on their campus. Now, if you were accepted off the wait list, the first thing you want to do is confirm your acceptance at the college. Make sure you look in that spot. After that, go to the other universities, places you might have put an enrollment deposit down in just to spread your bets, and notify them you won't be attending. And then get started on housing, registration, and coursework selection. In general, you might be a little late for these things, so you might have second to last or last pick, but still worth being able to attend the university you really want to go to. Now, for those students who are rejected, my advice is this. Take some time to process, look at your other options for college, make sure you accept somewhere, even if it wasn't your first choice before May 1st. And keep in mind it's not personal, though it's okay if it feels personal. I think this is going to be a lot of waitlist students this year. Lots of great universities have waitlist acceptance rates on 10%. So there's going to be a lot of students who do their best on an LCI, but just don't quite make it. Guys, if you need help with the strategy aspect of this, anything from what SAT score you ought to be sending to how to build an LCI, Ivy Scholars has an article. You can find this QR code. If you scan the QR code in question with your smartphone, it'll take you to a page on the Ivy Scholars website that'll walk you through all these strategic considerations I've been mentioning. I'm going to give everyone a moment to scan that, and then we're going to move on to our next topic, gap year. Let's talk gap years. So let's say you're not sure you're quite ready to go to college. I've got a cartoon lampooning this phenomena, and I think it's kind of funny because it keys into this common anxiety for parents that their kids aren't ready to leave the nest, but they're not sure if they're ready to do other stuff either. In this case, most parents would have a lot of reservations towards agreeing to their child asking to take a year to travel around the internet. Most 18-year-olds, are not ready to plan out how to spend an entire year, especially outside the structure of an academic institution like a school. Simultaneously, gap years can have real advantages. If you've notified universities by May 1st that you want to take your gap year, here's some advice on how to make a plan and stick to it. The best gap year activities are those that promote independence and give you a chance to do all the things you wanted to might not have a chance to at university. That means independent research, volunteering, working with either private organizations or nonprofit ones, as well as athletics and art, if students are interested in taking a gap year, is to create a month-by-month plan for what you want done every August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. And then by that time, keep in mind, you'll have spent a whole 9 months of your entire semester. You'll be here at this time, April in 2025. And my hope is, with a good plan, you'll have a way to make sure the time doesn't slip through your fingers. And in fact, you've got a lot to show for your gap year. But gap years might be right for all students. I think there's a better compromise if you want the structure of an academic institution, but you didn't get into the school you wanted to. It's community college. I think community college gets a bad rap. It certainly often gets overlooked because it's not very prestigious, but it's an amazing resource for students who might not have amazing grades coming out of high school. It's a chance to improve them, get used to the freedom of college, and it's far, far cheaper than a four-year university. UT Austin will be $25,000, even $30,000 per year once you include room, board, and other expenses. Community colleges might be 10% of that, or even less. It's also important to remember that community colleges are a launching pad. You don't need to get your final degree from there. They can be a wonderful way to knock out English 101, basic calculus, US history. A lot of those required courses. Good news here is that public four-year universities will often partner with community colleges to help transfer students. You can see this phenomena with, for example, Austin College and UT Austin. Or if you're looking at UC schools, the University of California, lots of California community colleges sponsored by local institutions have great transfer agreements with the UC schools. I think it's important for any Texas-bound students to check the transfer rate of your community college into Texas A&M and UT Austin, in general, the two top schools in Texas, because lots of these community colleges will offer you a great transfer pathway. Now, in terms of expenses, I've got a chart for you at the right here, comparing the historical average cost of community college over the last, let's say, 40 years. Bottom line, community college is much cheaper. There's no housing, and living at home is cheaper than living in dorms. And community colleges still offer financial aid. If you don't have a lot of money right now, but have a lot of academic promise, community college might be an amazing gateway for you to get the course credits you need and the grades you need to look like a serious applicant to a four-year university that would give you the degree you need to launch the career you want. But I've got another topic to turn to. It's more niche, but I think it's very important for the students to whom it applies. It's about athletic recruitment. So students who recruited athletes can gain a massive advantage in admissions. There are 3 divisions, D1, D2, and D3, with D standing for division. They each recruit athletes in decreasing order of prestige and difficulty. So D1 is the hardest, D3 is the easiest. Recruitment generally begins the summer before junior year, and it'll last until about the fall of senior year. And it is not created equal on a per sport basis. Some sports, like fencing or rowing or equestrian sports, will have a massive advantage over other sports. Specifically, about 500,000 students every year participate in NCAA sports. The majority receive scholarships financially. For Division I and Division II, you can expect this to be direct athletic scholarships. For Division III, which does not come with a caveat that obliges you to play the sport for the university you're attending, it'll be an academic scholarship, maybe a need-based grant or a general merit-based grant, but not specifically an athletic scholarship. D1 players are bigger, more athletic, and spend all their time training. D3 students are more like passionate, highly skilled players who really want to be students first and foremost. And D2 students are in the middle. When it comes to athletic scholarships, there's a few variables that determine award. First of all, this is just D1 and D2 institutions. Second, you've got to consider your sport, your division, and your gender, and you've got to renew these scholarships every year. In terms of your sport, you'll see there's a couple sports in this chart right above me that show a clear propensity for offering more scholarships than others. Female fencers, for example, have a 7.5% receiving a scholarship. And if you're in one of those esoteric sports, like female rowing or equestrian sports, you'll see their chances are double digits, even as high as 30 to 40%. The fact is, universities really want students to fill out their athletic teams. If you're in one of those rare demographics where there's not a lot of students in your athletic group in your division, you have a great chance of getting a merit scholarship. On the other hand, let's say you're a bowler or a wrestler. Your chances of getting a scholarship are probably around 0.5% to 1%. Simply put, there's so many students in these sports that they're not amazing or fertile grounds for getting merit scholarships. This is why I encourage all students who are interested in athletics, especially at more competitive D1 and D2 schools, to do their research thoroughly. Something I think everyone should be aware of, especially the students planning to attend these schools, is the stereotype of dumb jocks has really died over the last couple decades. Back at the turn of the millennium, about 74% of students would graduate, and about 25% of young athletes would drop out. This is no longer the case. As of 2024, only about 7% of athletic admits are dropouts, way lower than the average dropout rate at almost all universities they attend. In other words, there's a stereotype that jocks are in university for their sport, but this is less and less true. Now, more and more students who are accepted on athletic scholarships are there because they really want to be and wouldn't go elsewhere, even if given the chance. So guys, if you or your child thinks they might be a recruitable student, my recommendation is to talk with your coach at the colleges you want to apply to. I'd research a short list of universities that have D1, D2, D3 programs, whatever you're competitive for. Then develop a strategic plan for outreach, including an explanation of who you are, a highlights video showing both your abilities as well as how good of a team player you are. What it would be like to have you not just someone on the field, but in the locker room and studying alongside with the other players. Different university sports will have different requirements. For example, swimming students need to be able to finish the freestyle 100 meters in a certain length of time. Rowing students will need to have a certain par rowing score. Every athletic organization will have its own internal metric, and it's your job to study those to make sure you're in line for the level of athletic recruitment that you want to participate in. But the harsh reality is, the vast majority of students who move from high school to college sports are probably not going to be in professional sports overall. If you look at the bottom row, you'll see that it's pretty much a single-digit percentage rate of students who make it there. Nonetheless, the percentage of students who make it from high school to NCAA to college sports are pretty strong. And with scholarships, it's often worth the effort. I do want to note that for especially competitive states in sports, for example, Texans in football, keep in mind your acceptance rates are probably going to be pretty low, close to 1% to 2%, rather than the higher percentage points you see here now. This is a generalization of sports lumped together the most and least competitive. But football and Texas go together like hot fudge and ice cream, right? So there's no challenge without the victory. Guys, last note here, it's about Title IX. Title IX requires equity across college sports funding. It's a law that was passed in the previous half century regarding how universities have to fund different sports and different gender of different sports. Because football is so popular and because equity must be maintained, you'll see a lot more female sports with scholarships and athletes than male equivalents. They tend to get sucked up by football. But it is really important to measure your gender's competitiveness for the sport you want to pursue specifically. Just looking at these generalities, these general statistics, isn't going to give you the full picture. Okay, we are halfway through. Let's talk about another topic. This is about summer activities. Rising seniors, rising freshmen, and sophomores and juniors currently in high school. Guys, if you've missed your summer application deadlines, if you're not sure what you're going to be doing June, July, August, here's a couple ideas. Work to save money for college, intern at a local organization, volunteer, do an independent research project, ideally connected to the major you're interested in. If you're an engineer, do a mechanical engineering research project, for example. And make sure any organizations you're leading, especially in your high school where you've got a title like president or founder, make sure they're ready to survive the transition away from you. That when you graduate, you passed on your knowledge to students who are succeeding you in this organization, and they're not left up the creek without a paddle. you'll see that working during high school is a pretty popular choice, and I think it's great for young people to learn some responsibility and how to function in the work environment. But it's just as valuable to do research, take summer courses, or pursue art or athletic interests. What is important is you pick a summer program strategically, something that adds to your candidacy, shows your passion for something you really care about, and shows that you accomplished something impressive, that you learned something new. When doing this, if you're looking at summer programs, I think it's worth looking at reputation, brand, whether these programs offer academic credit, if they're residential, commuter, or online. But for the most part, expect that any organized activity in which you're collaborating with others to achieve some meaningful end is going to have a more efficacious endpoint for your college admissions profile than spending time on stuff like hanging out or looking at Instagram or playing after school sports. I think all those things are great, but they need to be done in moderation. The truth is, it's tough for admissions officers to see the value in just those activities if you don't have more to add. If I were to pick one you could do over the summer to add to your candidacy, I'd pick a research publication. Research is the peak of academia. Unlike high school teachers, professors in universities, their real job is doing research. They just teach classes as a side gig. There's over 20 different journals that exist to publish high school level research. And most top universities, Yale, Columbia, Brown, Harvard, encourage applicants specifically to submit the research they've done. Now, this can sound a little intimidating because, boy, howdy, are there a lot of venues. But the good news here is these venues offer pretty much every every discipline you can think of. We're not just talking about science or engineering here. You've got humanities, natural sciences, mathematics, psychology, neuroscience, medicine. I think it's worth considering that whatever area of interest you got, there is a publication that would support you learning more about and writing about what you learned in that area of interest, and that make a big difference in your college application. Specifically, you can measure this difference via impact factor, which is shorthand for how many people read and cite that journal every year in their own articles or their own publications. In general, high school students should be looking for this bottom range here, about impact factor 2 to about impact factor 7, or a couple hundred to a couple thousand people read what you're writing per year. I think anything less than that and what you're writing might not be all that important. Anything more than that, and unfortunately, you might be edged out by a much more competitive submission body and application. And competition's on everyone's mind with research projects in general. Let's talk about how to handle that. Research projects that get published have legs. They ask a great question that can really go somewhere. In general, it hasn't been asked before, and it's narrow enough to be tested and for you to reach an exhaustive conclusion. Students who successfully take their question to the next level grab hard numbers for analysis, either from their own experimentation or from publicly available data sets, like those released by our federal government. After that, they analyze the data and compare its meaning to their research question, and they present their knowledge, adding it to store of global knowledge and teaching people a little bit about what they've learned. I think this can be a lot for a high school student to do solo. So Ivy Scholars created a research program with mentors from a bunch of different fields, everything from ecology to machine learning to economics to pre-med to psychology. It's my goal to make sure we can help students find a research idea, source their data, validate it, identify where they'd want to publish, write the research and analysis section, publish it so the publication that you're submitting to wants to accept your work, and then actually submit and get accepted. If you guys think you might need help, I advise you to scan the QR code right up there. It's got a link to the Ivy Scholars Research Mentor section of our website where you can learn a lot about how to effectively do research in high school to build your candidacy for college. But enough about what we can do for most students. Let's talk about what we can do specifically for Catalyst Collective students. Ivy Scholars created a Catalyst Collective specific scholarship where one member will receive 4 years of college admissions counseling. We're offering this to high school freshmen through seniors. The deadline for you to submit a nomination for a deserving young person is July 31st, and we'll have made our decision by halfway through August. What I'd like everyone to do is take a moment to scan both the QR code in the bottom right and look at the application link in the bottom left. Think if you know a deserving young person who might be helped by an amazing college admissions consulting company, giving them a leg up in understanding and executing upon the kind of strategy that we into a top-tier university. If you to read out, now, guys, as a reminder, this scholarship offers everything our traditional program does. That means candidacy building to make sure you built your resume for college, test preparation for the SAT and ACT, college planning, advising on college essays, interview preparation, and then helping students transition to be effective when they join college. It's meant for very talented students who otherwise might not be able to afford our help. Now, for a last note, Ivy Scholar students have been accepted at and earned over $1 million scholarships to most top-tier universities in the nation, including every single Ivy League university. I think we do a fantastic job, and I hope you can help us identify some of the students who can really benefit from our help and add to their community. Now, I've got my final Catalyst Collective presentation coming up, presentation 7. That's going to be in just under 1 month on May 19th, the same time, 5 p.m. Central, for the same length, 1 hour. Seniors, we're talking about making the most of summer, preparing for college, picking your major, and starting to consider candidacy building for graduate school in your career. For juniors, we're talking about standardized testing because the SAT and ACT are going to be conducted very differently than they were last year. We'll talk about essays and a resume. For all grade levels, I want to talk about building strong profiles academically and in terms of extracurriculars, as well as students who are first generation, legacy, or minority. I want to help everyone create a checklist for what it is they need to do and talk about Ivy Scholars can mentor students through that process. Now, before I go, I've got a couple wonderful questions for our audience. The first one being about something I wanted to touch on too, changes in SAT requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, the SAT and the ACT are coming back. Many top-tier universities and a lot of Tier 2 through Tier 4 universities have announced that they are moving from test optional status to test mandatory status. That means students who want to be seriously considered for admission must take standardized tests and submit them to the universities they plan to attend. In general, this means that test prep is still something to take seriously, that it's an obligation you can't escape from, and the brief reprieve we saw during COVID was a matter of the complication of logistics of getting to test centers in the middle of a pandemic, not a statement by universities that they no longer value standardized testing. So, students who are planning to attend universities ought to choose either the SAT or the ACT. My recommendation is to go to both collegeboard.org that runs the SAT and act.org that runs the ACT, download a free practice test, take them both blind without any preparation, and see which one you score better on according to the scoring table on the website. From my professional experience, I find that students who are deeper thinkers and who are more used to test-taking tricks do better on the SAT, and students who are quicker and able to deliver a lot of answers at a rapid pace without stopping generally do better on the ACT. But everyone's unique, and the best data is going to be the one customized to you or to your child from taking both diagnostic tests and getting used to what the tests expect from you. The other major question I asked was about gap years. I think a lot of students are nervous about asking for gap years, but the good news is this is an institutionalized process. It doesn't need to be personal. It doesn't need to be about your feelings or personal readiness for university. It can just be you taking advantage of an institutional policy the university's offered for the last couple decades. All you need to do is look up your university's gap year protocol. Generally, you can find this in the admissions section of their website, and there's a short letter you'll write before May 1st where you confirm your matriculation, where you ask universities to hold your spot for 1 year. Remember, the worst they can say is no. While you can be denied for a gap year, you cannot be rejected from a university that you've already been accepted from merely for asking for a gap year. So, nothing to worry about there. Guys, I think that's all the questions I've got for today. I'm really happy you were able to join me, and I'm hoping this conversation, this presentation, helped you be a little more aware, both of how to help the young people in your life with college admission strategy, as well as of the opportunities available to young teens in Catalyst Collective who could use something like the Laurel Scholarship at Ivy Scholars. Ladies and gentlemen, as my final plea to you, I'll say this. If you know a young person who deserves this kind of help, who could really benefit from it, please scan our QR code, and I'll show it to you one more time just so it's on reference for everyone, and make sure that talented young person has a chance to get in front of Ivy Scholars and ask for our help. I would love to make sure they end up attending the university of their dreams, get a great education, and live a life that is so much better than what they could do without our help. Guys, that's everything I've got to share today. Thank you so much for attending my presentation, and I bid you good evening.